So I also took the little 5-inch along today and flew it twice. This is the first flight. Anybody know why my OSD, after I come back and overlay it over my video from the Walksnail, it looks like that instead of being out to both sides like it is in the monitor when I'm flying, and I think it is in the OSD setup. I'm going to have to look into that. Unbelievable. This was totally a manual flight. Basically, again, I was going to run out the battery and do the failsafe thingy. Battery failsafe. This flight, I'm going to give it A minus because it didn't failsafe the way I thought it would. 24.4 volts right now. I stopped it to bring it up a little bit there. I was flying with the monitor instead of the goggles. Like I say, I had 2 other pilots with me today, spotting. It was all really good. It was a great day. Met a new pilot I never met before today. I need that OSD data on each side of the screen, in the middle of the screen, etc. Why is it doing that? I'll figure it out. So I'm at what, 88 feet here? Where's my glasses? And I said, oh, wait a minute. Those trees are higher than that. So I stopped here and said, wait, I better take it up a little higher. Oh, the return to launch is set to 150 feet. I was wanting to keep it below return to launch, but then I remembered the trees. The time seems to work. The mode seems to work on the OSD coming from the flight controller. The speed, satellites, HDOP, direction home, distance home, flight battery, altitude, and vertical speed all seem to work. The milliamp hours and the percent efficiency and the throttle position do not seem to work, along with the RSSI. I'll have to get all that worked out. 23.4, it's set at 22.5 and has that 10-second requirement. They moved that irrigation pivot around and put it right over where we come down to today. Frequently it's up towards their building. I try to stay away from these high voltage towers. 23.3, 95 feet. Got it back down where if it fail safes, it'll go up to the 150, and I can prove all of that. Right there, that's the last high voltage tower before it goes to another tower in the field across the river. Hope to use that little hill in front of us for terrain following testing. This was all yaw turns. And I almost drifted out over the road, which I don't want to do. 23.1, 23.0, I think. Nice flying field. This is the first time I've really gotten a good look at it from the air. I'm going to have to do several just straight up orientation flights. I've done visual line of sight flights here, but never flown with the goggles or monitor. This is my first monitor flight. Well, real monitor flight. I just had done my quad stuff and was stopped that about 2017. We moved. I didn't do anything for 3 years. And at that point, I was ready to go to airplanes. I'm still ready to go to airplanes. I built a bunch of them past year or so, but these two quads I built this winter, I hope they're finally coming to an end. Only up to 17 satellites right now. It started off at 8, and it slowly is building up. I'm trying to stay below lower now because I suspect a failsafe is coming too soon. 22.6. It's set for 22.5, so in my opinion, it should evoke at 22.4. Well, and 10 seconds after 22.4. So I'm just flying the field, building data flash data so I can look for GPS glitches, other errors, etc., etc. I'm in loiter mode. I'm flying like I'm DJI. 22.5. The flashing is from settings in the OSD. I can fix that. I can at least make it flash at 22.5. 22.4 for a second, but not for 10 seconds. There again, a little 22.4. Let's call it 22.4 now and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What the hey? 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 20. It's not doing it. And it's down to 22.3. So I pulled the return to launch again. And then it starts up to the 150 feet, orients to home, and then watch the screen near the bottom. 22.3 still. There it says battery failsafe. Now I wonder if that's because of the sag compensation or something. Man, I can't believe it. It was longer than 10 seconds, so I pulled the RTL again. Dang it. I wanted it to do it on its own, but I didn't want to crash, so I don't want to run it too far down. It's at 22.3. There's our cars right down there at the end of the little dirt road. 50 feet to home. Basically, its home orients to its takeoff orientation and starts down at 5 feet per second. It'll get down to where it's secondary landing, and it'll slow down the vertical speed. Now I was talking to the other two pilots there today. That's where I showed them the nudging. I was going to test that on the other one. See, now it's in its secondary. It's coming down at about 1 foot per second, roughly. And we land, and that's it. Some of these things were put in here by the little, I don't know what you call it, the extended tuning, initial tuning parameters. If you go in here and say this is a 5-inch, I'll just do it for what my setup was. It's not really this area that does it. It's right here. Say add suggestions for battery cell face. God help me, Lord. Battery fail safe and fence. I don't want to apply any of those. And these aren't against default parameters. So see, it puts in the arm voltage, which is normally a 0, I think, with the defaults. This low voltage, they wanted to put in 21.6. I was keeping it a little bit above that with my 22.5. So I don't see it puts a lot of junk in there. But if we go over here, go back to this, and I'm using the full parameter tree now because it puts the values and stuff a little closer together than the full parameter list. Trying to look at the battery this way. This is the same information here, and you see it all doesn't fit on the screen, whereas if you go over here just for doing this video, I can put it all on the one screen. So amp per volts, battery arm voltage, okay, it put in 22.1, but that just means that if the battery's below that, it will never arm. That shouldn't be causing my, and it didn't get that low, so that's not why my failsafe's not coming up like I want it. It was a little 1400 milliamp hour, that 150C battery I want to use for try and learn freestyle because and I used it because I didn't want to have to fly it a long time before the failsafe. This is a critical voltage. I think that's put in by the other one. I should throw the I'll throw the default parameters into one of my bench flight controllers sometime and show you what that other one modifies, but this shouldn't be a problem either. Okay, if it got down to 22.1, it would just land where it's at, but it's not getting that low, and I'm not really interested in trying that fail-safe. I don't really want to get that low. Could test it. What if it takes 20-30 seconds afterwards? You notice I'm a little bit upset. I still gave myself an A-, just because I had to pull the return to launch instead of it doing it. On the battery fail-safe low, when it gets to 22.5 volts, it's going to do a return to launch. And that's just what I'm trying to go. And I do use the, instead of raw voltage, I do use the sag compensated voltage here with a 1 so that, you know, punch outs, stuff like that, do not, or takeoffs, mostly for airplanes. I'm going to have to compare all these to the default parameters and see what happens. Well, actually, I can do that in the upper one. Now, here's the battery low timer. 10 seconds. Battery capacity. Oops, that's for this one here. This is the timeout in seconds before low voltage event will be triggered. For aircraft with low C batteries, it may be necessary to raise this in order to cope with low voltage on long takeoffs. Yeah, but that's for airplanes, not really quads. A value of 0 disables low voltage errors. I kind of, if it sags below it, goes below it, I don't want it to immediately. Maybe I should have this at 0. But it was longer than 10 seconds. Come on, guys. It got way lower than 22.5, which is the next value, for longer than 10 seconds, and I pulled the switch again. Monitoring voltage and current, all this is. The rest of this is multiplier and pin. No, there's nothing there that I can see that's causing this. Maybe if I set this to 0, just as soon as it gets underneath this value, it'll fail safe. Isn't that something? That was my major test today. Just run out another battery, develop some data flash logs, looking for glitches and errors, getting some heat in the ESCs and stuff. That'll be my next things when I fly manually and push it. Get it out of loiter mode and start pushing it and get those amps up there and stuff. Want to get all the circuitry burned in, as we called it in the computers when we built them. I'm going to go back to this one real quick to just discuss the last of this real quick. Here we go. That's at default, that's at default, that's at default. Yeah, see, the battery arm voltage is not at default, but that was done by that extended tuning parameters. This is the default for milliamp hours. So this was changed when I did this originally. But it's not at a value that I worry about. I'm quite fine with that value. I'm quite fine with what it does at that value. So, where are we at again? So that's fine. This is not doing it. This is not causing it to go longer than 10 seconds. I did drop the capacity to 1400 milliamp hours because that's what the battery is. Default critical voltage. This was put in by that same utility. This is where it will land. That's normally a 0. Again, I don't mind this being this way if I have to walk and pick it up because it lands. If it doesn't damage my battery or platform, lets it land softly. I can nudge it around, and if I've got video, I can land it someplace. Okay. This particular board, have to look at this current pin to make sure that's the correct one. I guess I've already done that when I built this. Battery failsafe critical action. See, that's normally a 0 for do nothing, but I don't mind it being 1 for land right where you're at. Battery failsafe low. So this one being a 2, return to launch, should be associated with the 22.5 down here, where this one for land immediately should be associated with this one. As long as I'm understanding this properly, which I did this for years. I didn't have this problem with the other quads, but see, I quit flying those quads and hexes and stuff in 2017 for 3 years. I'm just now getting back into flying quads at all just because I built those 2 this winter, or I'd be on airplanes. And the voltage source here is from change from the default because I do the sag compensated voltage. This is at default. This is at default. This isn't at default because on a 6S I wanted it at 22.5. Just my preference. Battery monitor for voltage and current is the default, which is current and voltage. Battery options is default. This is at default. Default, default, default. And then we're into the second battery. I just don't know why it doesn't fail safe 10 seconds after it goes to 22.4 volts. It bothers me. Oh well. So real quick, let's run out while we're here and just look at the data flash logs. That's basically what I was trying to do here, is build the data flash logs. I think this is the first flight. Yeah. Yeah, I was changing altitudes. This is where return to launch made it change again. Some of you guys really helped me, and now I realize this time this is in meters. So here I was above 150 feet. This is 150 feet in here while I was waiting for it to fail safe. Except for when I went over near. No, that's the second flight. We'll get into that. I almost confused my two flights. This is where I was just keeping it under the era. Failsafe battery 1. We'll have to look at this compared to the voltage. So battery 1 is low, 22.28 volts. I'll have to break these messages out a different way. They just override each other here. Battery failsafe right here. Back that back up. Yeah, that's after I had already pulled it right up through here. What was the voltage at that time? This isn't voltage, this is altitude. Battery 1 is low at 22.28. And it used 640 milliamp hours out of a 1400 milliamp hour battery. And the rest of this is where it landed, so it doesn't tell me much. Don't have a lot of errors in here. Wow. That looks like where I repositioned it during the landing. Landing complete, maybe. Let's try to see what else those messages said, if I can pull them apart. Land complete. Land complete, maybe. Interlock disabled. That's where I disarmed it. So, interesting, huh? Oh, well. Yep, I unchecked it. So, just real quick. GPS. Number of sats. Wow. Let me open this again. That thing resets. The data flash log viewer does some funky things sometimes when it resets. Number of sats. Yeah, see? I thought I set that back to the default scale, but evidently I didn't. Right click and show point values. So I had about 10 when I took off. See, it constantly went up and up and up and up throughout the flight. I wish it would do that more quickly. I can't sit on the ground waiting, running down flight battery and heating up the Walksnail. I can, however, go on USB power, which is why I've always wanted my notebook at the place besides the flight field, besides telemetry to the ground, because I use the USB power as an umbilical cable like on a rocket to let this ramp up for a while, just connected to the notebook. Normally I connect to the notebook as soon as I get to the field. I take the landing pad out, the quad out, notebook out, set it up, connect it to the quad so USB power can be applied. Then I start getting out the tripods for the other stuff and all my radios and GoPro hat and all that stuff, and I just let it sit here normally gathering up satellites. You can see it was still gathering up satellites like 7 minutes into the flight. I wished it would gather satellites a little more quickly. Maybe that's what my problem is with these GPSs instead of the M10s, because this is that M10 can. HDOP, of course, gets lower and lower and lower. It was below a 2 almost from the get-go. It was certainly below a 2 when I took off. It won't take off if it's not. And got down as low as here's a 0.6 again. Nice. I always like to look at vibrations real quick. We're down below 10. Down below 20. Down below 15 at least. And I keep going back to this. If you can get telemetry connected all the time, you can click this while it's flying. Again, if it stays below 30, you're in the green. If it goes above 30, you might want to start looking at notch filters, etc., etc., if you haven't enabled them yet. Get some of that vibration out of there. But I don't have a full connection to the telemetry connection to the ground station. Up until 2017, everything I did prior to me quitting in 2017, I always had telemetry to my ground station for the whole mission or playing around with the rover or any of the quads or the hexes. I never failed to have a full telemetry connection for the whole flight. Well, I did one time because in 2015 I flew a long way away. But I can show you a 1 mile away flight in 2015, and a different one with the flame wheel where I went a mile away with the little bitty telemetry radios that came with the original 3DR. They did not disconnect. I think I'm going to get back to that same thing with the Dragon Link with the airplanes, but I'm not there yet. This is not got Dragon Link on it. So let's look at one last little thing. The exposure could be changed on the run cam orange. The motor sound seems consistent, but there is a little bit of vibration gets in it every now and then, and you can hear it. The wind was flopping it around. I did not use gyro flow on any of this yet. I could. How about this for a place to fly, especially the airplanes? Such a nice, soft landing spot. See all the tracks in the sod? They mow it every day. Makes the roots grow instead of the green part. Customers need the roots, not the green part. Grass needs a little green part on it just for the roots to survive, but not much. And if I crash an airplane or a quad here, it's just such a terrible walk to it. It's like walking on a golf green instead of going through briars and brambles. I'd hate to go down on the other side of the river. Even if it goes in the irrigation ditch, it's not bad to walk here to wherever it's down, as long as it stays inside this field. Quonset hut in front of us is where the tractors and the employees here work out of. Usually the pivots pointed from that central place where it pivots towards that Quonset hut. Completely on the other side of the irrigation ditch. Should be running up through here normally. closer to them or the road. I think this real soon here is where I finally pulled the return to launch switch because of my failsafe problem. It's not really that a problem. It's enough to knock me down from an A to an A minus. They harvested the field right below us since the last time I was here a week ago. As we crossed this irrigation ditch, they had harvested this one last time I was here and the one we're parked at. Also, in the next flight, you'll see up on the right, they harvested a lot of acreage up on the right. You can see exactly where they stopped that pivot. It's dark behind it, where it's wetter, and it's drier in front of it, where they stopped it. Interesting. I wanted to land in the nice soft sod today instead of in the dirt and kick up dust and stuff and get it in my motors and stuff, so here it is doing its return to launch landing from 150 feet. Nothing spectacular here. This was about noonish, 1 o'clock. So I think I could open up that exposure just a bit on that run cam too. It's a run cam 5 orange. I was meaning that run cam camera also. All right, as we land here, I'm just going to say thank you guys, and I'll get it figured out at some point. Thank you.